Hey guys, today we're back with another broadcast from the studio. For our first segment today, we're going to be talking about the radios in the 1920s.
The invention of the 1906 radio wouldn't have happened without the introduction of the first long-distance radio signals, which was made possible by a man named Marconi. He developed and marketed the first long-distance wireless telegraph using dashes and dots. It all started in 1906, when Reginald Fessenden created the first radio. That same year, he did the first broadcast for entertainment purposes. This started a new revolution for communication and leisure. In 1920, a new radio with vacuum tubes was created, which made communication more clean. These radios cost $75 and cost up to $475 for a custom one. Radios created instant communication and more leisure time for families. Radios are used for many purposes such as entertainment, education, and even politics, which was all made possible by the arrival of radio broadcasting stations. The government during the time did not regulate the radio signals and started to gradually add laws to the use of radios because of the idea of anything being able to be put out there to the public. This led to the government creating the Federal Radio Commission, which was set up in 1926, and the Radio Act of 1927, which organized the Federal Radio Commission. The Radio Act of 1927 became the basis for the Communications Act passed after the rise of television. On November 2nd, Dr. Frank Conrad created the first radio station named KDKA in Pittsburgh. A few years in, and the radio was in the hands of the majority of homeowners. The radio business went up and the newspaper didn't do so well. Instead of families going up and picking up an old rusty newspaper daily, they are able to buy a new affordable radio. These radios impacted education as they have psychologists and teachers teaching students on the other end. This changed the way they educate their children and had a dramatic increase in the amount of children that went into better schools and jobs. The economic downfall for the newspaper business will force many to go to work for these new dominating companies, prompting an increase in the amount of radios being made, therefore bringing the price down for the public. As radio ownership increased, so did the number of radio stations. In 1920, KDKA was not actually the only operating radio station, but is what started the whole idea of broadcasting stations, and by 1922, 600 radio stations had sprung up around the U.S. Chicago's first radio station, KYW, began in 1921 by Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company. It was the first specialized radio station broadcasting only opera 6 days a week. Once the opera season ended, they opened to more programs such as politics and sports. Different ethnic groups had an increased sense of community as each group could listen to programs suited their interests and needs. However, the advance of radio technology also created a tension between modern and traditional values of Americans. In 1922, a man named Edwin Armstrong created the Superhead radio, making radio transmission much more cleaner. In 1929, he created the FM radio, adding on to AM and introducing a new addition to the radio. There was already about 60,000 households with radios in 1922.
For our second segment, we're talking about the radios in the 1930s.
In 1930, the radio began to be altered. It was in at least half of the population's households. At the start of the decade, 12 million American households owned a radio, and by 1939, this total exploded to more than 28 million households. This is also the time revolving around the Great Depression, and at the time, radios gave the public entertainment as well as projections for the ambitions that they wanted to achieve. Radio broadcasting companies had to go along with what people wanted during this time. Portions on everything besides entertainment. The entertainment included sports, music, soap operas, comedies, and dramas. In 1934, Congress passed the Communications Act of 1934 and created the Federal Communications Commission to oversee the nation's mass communications industry. During 1939, when World War II was beginning, radio broadcasts during the Nazi bombings shifted towards foreign issues rather than domestic economic issues. Radios also helped establish a national broadcasting network such as NBC and CBS, which is still present to this day. After the 1930s, the popularity of radios began to decline at the hands of newer, more visual technologies.